Hi guys, it's Mrs. Jewell. We are going to go ahead and read chapter 13. Of course, our friend Lucy is here. I seriously think she likes just listening to me. I'll put you over there with her in case she decides to say hello. Chapter 13. Dad was serious about getting serious. The same morning he was released from jail, he went out to got himself hired by a company called Tropical Rescue. It wasn't the sort of work that my father could put his heart into, but I knew why he took the job. It was the boat. They let him use a 24-foot outboard with a T-top and twin 150s, not for fishing, but for towing in tourists who ran out of gas or rammed their boats aground. Normally, my father has no patience for these sorts of bumblers. He calls them googans, or even worse, depending on what kind of fix they've got themselves into. But Dad needed the job, so he buttoned his lip and kept his opinions to himself. Unless it's a life or death emergency, the Coast Guard refers disabled boat calls to private contractors like Tropical Rescue, which charge big bucks. They stay busy, too. It's amazing how many people are too lazy to read a fuel gauge, a compass, or a marine chart. They just point their boats at the horizon and go. All around the Keys, you can see their propeller trenches, long, ugly gouges like giant fingernail scrapes across the tidal banks. It takes years for the seagrass to grow back. Dad's first rescue job was a boatload of software salesmen from Orlando who were stranded all the way out at 9 Mile Bank. Somehow they'd managed to beach a brand new bayliner on a flat that was only 4 inches deep. That's not easy to do unless you're bombed or wearing a blindfold. Miraculously, Dad restrained himself from saying anything insulting. He didn't get mad. He didn't make fun of the bonehead who'd been driving the boat. No, my father, the new and improved Payne Underwood, stayed calm and polite. He waited patiently for the tide to come up, tugged the bayliner off the bank, and towed it back to Caluso Cove. He told us he almost felt sorry for the software salesmen when he handed them the bill, which didn't even include the hefty fine from the Park Service for trashing the seagrass. It was probably one of the most expensive vacations those guys ever had. Even though Dad didn't like dealing with googans, he was 10 times happier on the water than he was driving a taxi. That meant Mom was in a better mood too, laughing and kidding around the way she used to do. The two of them were getting along so well that Abby and I were extra careful not to mention the sticky subject of Dusty Muleman's casino boat. We discussed our new plan of attack only when we were alone and away from the house, where our parents couldn't hear us. A couple of days after my father got out of jail, the Parks Department took down the pollution warnings at Thunder Beach. The next morning, Abby and I put on our bathing suits and grabbed a couple of towels and dashed outside. Mom and Dad figured we were heading for the park, which is exactly what we wanted them to think, because we were really going to Shelley's trailer. I had to knock a half dozen times. When she finally came to the door, she didn't seem especially delighted to see us. Her eyes were puffy and half closed, and it looked like somebody had set off a firecracker in her hair. "Time is it?" she asked hoarsely. 7:30, I said. She winced. "A.M.? You gotta be kidding me." Abby said, "It's important, please." We followed Shelley inside. She sagged onto the sofa and tucked her legs up under her tatty pink bathrobe. "Killer headache," she explained, running her tongue across her front teeth. "Large party last night." She was clearly in pain, so we got straight to the point. "We need your help," I said. "Now." "To do what?" "To stop Dusty Muleman. You promised, remember?" She laughed. One of those tired, what was I thinking laughs. She looked across at Abby. "And you promised to keep your big brother out of trouble." "We won't get in any trouble," Abby said evenly, "if you help us." It sounded like Shelley was having second thoughts. I wondered if she really was afraid of Dusty Muleman after all. In a discouraged voice, she said, "I don't know what we can do to stop him. He's tight with all the big shots in town." "But he's poisoning Thunder Beach," I said. "You know how sick a kid could get from swimming in that bad water? Same goes for the fish and the dolphins and the baby turtles. It sucks what Dusty is doing. It's awful." "Yeah, but—" "And don't forget what happened to Lice," I added. "Remember how you told me you had a dog in this fight? Remember?" "Lice is exactly what I've been thinking about," Shelley cut in. "Say they really killed him, okay? You suppose they'd hesitate to do the same to me or you if something goes wrong? It was about time she got worried, and who could blame her? If she was right about Lice being dead, then Dusty and Luna were both cold-blooded murderers. But one glance and I knew Abby wouldn't back off no matter what the risks. Neither could I. Shelley, I know it's dangerous. Not to mention crazy, she said. Yeah, and probably crazy, I agreed. Look, if you don't want to be a part of this, it's okay, I understand. She shut her eyes and rolled back her head. Uh-oh, here comes the guilt. She pressed her knuckles to her ears. Enough already, Noah. This poor blonde head's about to explode. Shelley stretched out on the sofa. Abby got some ice cubes from the refrigerator and wrapped them in a dish towel, which Shelley gingerly positioned across her brow. After a minute or two of muffled moaning, she said, Guess I wasn't feeling so brave when I got up this morning, but hey, a promise is a promise. Count me in. Abby and I looked at each other with happy relief. So what's the big plan? Shelley asked. And how does your daddy fit in? He doesn't fit in. We're not telling him about it, Abby replied. Shelley opened one bloodshot eye and studied us. That's probably a darn good idea, she said. But he'll still get blamed for everything if we get caught, I pointed out. That's why we need you. Shelley sighed. So let's hear it. When we told her our plan, she didn't laugh or make fun. She just lay there thinking. Well, Abby said impatiently. Shelley levered herself upright, balancing the ice pack on her forehead. This idea of yours is so whacked, she said. It just might work. Does that mean you'll help us? And all I gotta do is flush? She asked. That's it? That's all you've got to do, I said. Flush and flush often. The next thing that happened was all my fault. I wasn't paying attention. Abby and I were riding home slowly along the old highway, talking about the Coral Queen when somebody rushed up on us from behind. Before I could wheel around, Jasper Muleman Jr. grabbed my bike and Bull grabbed Abby's, and together they dragged us backward into a strand of Australian pines. Not again, I thought in a panic. It wasn't me I was frightened for. It was my sister. No sooner had Jasper Jr. knocked me to the ground than I heard Bull cut loose with a spine-chilling wail. Instantly, I knew what had happened. He'd been too careless with Abby. Make her let go, Jasper hollered at me. I can't. Jasper Jr. jerked me to my feet. Underwood, you don't make her let go of Bull, I'll snap you like a twig. Bull kept on wailing. Abby had sunk her teeth into his earlobe and was hanging on like a starved alligator. Bull was at least a foot taller than her, so he had to be careful not to pull away, or else he might lose the entire ear. Whenever he moved even a little bit, his wailing got louder. The boy was in serious pain. Make her stop, Jasper Jr. demanded. He's bleeding, man, can't you see? Abby, is Bull really bleeding? I asked. She nodded, causing Bull to crank up the volume. It was pitiful to hear. Jasper Jr. started throttling me by the shoulders. Make her quit, Underwood. Make her stop. One condition, I said. You guys let her go free. Jasper Jr. sneered his famous sneer. How about this for a condition, dork brain? Your sister quits chewing on Bull, else I start pounding your head with a ripe coconut. Bull managed to calm himself long enough to offer his own opinion. The girl takes her teeth out of my ear, she walks. You got my promise, Underwood. Hey, no way, Jasper Jr. began to protest. You shut up, Bull snapped. He was looking at us with his thick neck bent toward the ground and his head positioned sideways to give Abby as much slack as possible. Considering the delicate situation, she seemed incredibly calm. I didn't see a single drop of blood, but there was no reason to inform Bull that he wasn't really bleeding to death. So, guys, do we have a deal or not? I asked. Deal, Bull grunted. Yeah, whatever, said Jasper Jr., spearing me with a bony elbow. All right, then, I said. Abby, you can let go now. She said through a mouthful of crinkled ear. Come on, let go of Bull. You want to catch some gross disease? He probably hasn't had a bath since Christmas, I said. Even that didn't make her quit. I knew why, too. She didn't want to leave me out there alone with the two of them. Honest, I'll be okay, I said, which must have sounded incredibly lame. She knew I wasn't going to be okay. She knew they were going to stomp me into hamburger meat. My sister said emphatically. Abby, come on. There was no way I could let her stay there in the woods. Jasper Jr. was a vicious punk who wouldn't think twice about beating up a girl half his size. Bull said, "I think I'm going to hurl." Abby chomped down harder, and the noise that came out of Bull didn't sound human. Jasper jumped me again and put me in a headlock. "Now listen, you little brat," he snapped at my sister. "We're going to do this my way. I'll break your brother's neck. You don't spit out Bull's ear by the count of 3. There was no response from Abby, but now I saw true fear in her eyes. My face must have looked like a tomato about to explode. As soon as Jasper Jr. was clinching down on me, I couldn't tell my sister what to do next because I couldn't squeak out a word. 1, said Jasper Jr. Abby hung on. 2, Abby wasn't budging. 2, Jasper Jr. barked again. I tried to wiggle free, but it was no use. Jasper Jr.'s forearm was locked tight against my throat, and it hurt to breathe. Everything in front of me started getting fuzzy and dark, and I figured I was about to pass out. The next words I heard were, "Try 2.5, shorty." The voice sounded too old and gravelly to be Jasper Jr., but I just assumed that my hearing was messed up because he'd squeezed all the oxygen out of my brain. "Let him go," the voice said again, and it clearly wasn't speaking to Abby. It was speaking to Jasper Jr., who, to my complete surprise, immediately let me go. I fell to the ground and stayed on all fours until I caught my breath. "You all right, Noah?" I lifted my eyes in bewilderment. The voice belonged to a lanky, long-armed man with woolly, silvery hair. A gleaming gold coin hung from a tarnished chain around his neck. His craggy face looked like a mahogany stump, and on one tanned cheek was a scar in the shape of an M. Anybody could see that the guy was old and tough. Shirtless and barefoot, he leaned casually against the trunk of a tall pine. His weather-beaten cutoffs had been bleached gray by the sun, and a dirty red bandana was knotted around his right wrist. The curly hair on his bare chest was as shiny as the hair on his head. Jasper Jr. wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but he knew that the stranger meant business. We was only joking around, he said timidly. "That's right," the old pirate. Sorry, guys. "That right?" the old pirate smiled in a way that caused Jasper Jr. to go pale. Bull whimpered like a puppy, but said nothing. The stranger turned to my sister. "Now it's your turn, Abby. How about you let loose of that boy?" My sister's eyes got wide at the sound of her name. She released her grip on Bull's ear, stepped back, and began spitting vigorously into the bushes. Bull straightened up and pressed a fist to his throbbing ear, trying to staunch the invisible bleeding. "Who are you?" I asked the old man. "How'd you know our names?" He brushed past me and went up to Jasper Jr., who looked like he desperately needed a bathroom. "You ever bother these 2 kids again," the old man warned, "and you'll dearly regret it. Comprende?" Jasper Jr. nodded shakily. Bull was actually an inch or so taller than the pirate, but it didn't help him. The guy walked over and got square in his face. "Pretty summer day. You can't think of anything better to do than hassle some helpless little girl? That's flat out pathetic, son." "Helpless? She nearly took off my ear." "I'd say you got off lucky," the stranger said with a smile. He winked at Abby and me and jerked a thumb over one shoulder. "Y'all run on home. Hurry up now." "Who are you?" my sister asked. "Nobody, and that's the truth." He wasn't kidding around. "Now get going, both of you," he said. "Me and the boys are going to finish our chat." Abby and I quickly retrieved our bicycles and took off. As soon as we were out of the trees, we started pedaling for home as fast as we could. "You ever seen that guy before?" Abby asked breathlessly. "I don't think so." "Then how'd he know who we were? Has he been spying on us or something? He looked kind of dangerous, Noah. You think he's dangerous?" "Abby, I honestly don't know. Maybe I should have been creeped out by the strange old pirate, but I wasn't. For some reason, I believed everything he said in the woods, except the part about him being nobody." It was an hour before dark when we got out to the islands called the Cowpens. They got the name because Indians supposedly kept sea cows penned up there a long time ago. Dad tossed the anchor into a deep hole about 200 yards from the main channel. The tropical rescue towboat was much bigger than Dad's bonefish skiff, so there was plenty of room for Mom to ride along. She'd said yes, too, which was a nice surprise. She sat on the bow with her back to the sun and snapped pictures of us fishing. Right away, I got a couple of decent mangrove snappers, and Dad caught a fat keeper grouper. My sister reeled in a pufferfish that blew itself up into a spiny balloon. She said it looked just like her fourth grade teacher. Of course, Abby and I didn't mention what had happened that afternoon on the way home from Shelley's trailer. Dad would have taken off after Jasper Jr., and Mom would have gone to the police to tell them about the strange old man. Besides, my father liked things quiet and peaceful when he was out on the water. He didn't go for too much talking. He said it was disrespectful to nature. After a while, we put away our fishing rods and sat down to wait for the sunset. The sky to the west was mostly clear except for a few wispy clouds and the long, foamy contrail from a big military jet. Dad took a seat up front next to Mom, who handed the camera to Abby. I dangled my legs off the starboard gunwale where rescue was painted in a bright orange lettering. A flock of pelicans floated over us in the shape of a V and kept on flying straight toward the great Gulf of Mexico. A light breeze was blowing from the southeast, rocking the boat just enough to make us a little drowsy. Abby nudged me and cut her eyes toward our parents, who were actually holding hands. Everything felt so good and so right. I had this feeling that we'd finally get to see the green flash. The evening was perfect for it. Gradually, the sun changed from gold to blazing pink and seemed to turn liquid as it dimpled the horizon. None of us said a word because we didn't want the moment to end. People who've never seen a sunset at sea would be blown away. Time seems to slow down until finally that huge blazing ball looks like it's just hanging there, balanced on the far edge of the earth. In reality, though, it's dropping fast. As the last rosy crescent melted into the gulf, I felt myself leaning forward, squinting hopefully at the skyline. Then the sun was gone, leaving a pale lemon emptiness. I glanced over at Abby, who was putting the camera away. She smiled and shrugged. "Wow, that was gorgeous," my mother whispered. "Yeah," said Abby, "but no green flash." "Maybe next time," my father said, as he always did. I turned my gaze back to the horizon and held it there, even as the rim of pink faded to darkness. I heard Dad hauling in the anchor and Mom zipping her windbreaker, and Abby asking if she could steer back to the dock. But still, I couldn't take my eyes off the sky. And that is the end of chapter 13. I'll see you soon. Bye.